Henry here and
Larry Richardson.
And we're these two guys for now. Anyway, so we had last week we talked about
Ice raids.
some ice raids on there, and we both committed not to do things political. However, it was kind of fun doing that. And, you know, today we're not here to bash any one side or take any sides. We're just here to kind of lay out some stuff that everybody's talking about right now. And what's the big thing everybody's talking about right now?
Epstein,
that's right. And even though, you know, there are the prison reports are in about what happened, I don't think everybody believes that. There may be some people out there that believe it. I don't know. How do you feel as far as the suicide goes? Are you a believer or a non-believer?
You know, I'm on the fence on that one as well. I could see something happening, but then again, you know, I mean, the guy was going down as the probably worst criminal in history, you know. So why would you want to live? If he was ever put in general population, they would have executed him anyway. So I think I could see someone in that extreme taking their own lives.
See, I take the side that, you know, someone who's that egocentric, they're not necessarily the ones that take their own lives. But then again, we have no evidence that says he didn't.
That is true.
There's circumstance, you know, cameras were out, people were out, you know, but that's not proof.
No. And also too the reports of the structure of that prison cell, right, where there was literally no way that anybody could have hung themselves. There was no apparatuses or structures that were high enough for someone to leverage that much of their own body weight to.
Okay, so then that lends to the story that he didn't commit suicide, though.
It does. Yeah. It's a gray area. I mean, there's
gray. I mean, it's like really gray. It's like so cloudy. But before the 2019 headlines, before the arrest at the private airport, before the death in the jail cell, Jeffrey Epstein was already a convicted sex offender, and that's what people are forgetting about. So back in 2008, he was convicted in Florida on state charges of sex offenses with a minor, trying to, you know, hire a minor for prostitution and that. And he basically made a plea deal, got a 13-month prison sentence, but 6 days a week, he was only in jail for 12 hours, and then on the 7th day, he was in for the full day. So he was on work release or whatever he did when he wasn't in there. But it's sort of like didn't really get talked about. Didn't really come to the forefront until names came out later on during this, you know, 2019 thing, where all of a sudden names started appearing and people talked about a list. And names that were on the list. Yeah. And then there's people that were saying, I saw a thing where Alan Dershowitz said he had the list. He saw the list on his desk. The list was there. Then he turned around and said there was no list. So I'm just totally confused about this whole thing right now.
It is very confusing because we have people like Pam Bondi who says there's files. I have the files. Well, and the files, or it's the list.
Files not necessarily a list, right?
Right. Files doesn't necessarily mean list, and a list is something that could be part of a file. You know, so I don't. It is very suspicious that, you know, Trump ran on, I'm going to expose this. I'm going to, you know, bring all the Epstein files and JFK files and all this other stuff to light, and Pam Bondi mentions, the list. She said list. She didn't say files. Initially, it was that they were going to be released. And then all of a sudden now there is no list.
Now, I don't know if we can separate fact from fiction because it's hard to know even what the facts are for that matter because there's so many different reporting agencies out there that are differing on it. Now, was Jeffrey Epstein a pedophile? Was Jeffrey Epstein a criminal in that sense? Absolutely. No doubt about that. The question I think everybody wants to know is who else should be charged for that? Now, this last week, they had Ghislaine Maxwell. They were down there and they were interviewing her. I thought that was kind of weird because if I'm Ghislaine Maxwell, there's two schools of thought here, right? If I tell them what I think they want to know, my life's in jeopardy.
Right.
I mean, I could end up the same way as Jeffrey did. All right. The other thing is, if she doesn't give them the information, are they going to believe her?
Right.
So I don't know what the benefit is of talking to her about that. The idea was to go down and find out if there were any other possible people that could be prosecuted for the offenses. And, during the whole trial for Epstein and her, nothing really came out about anybody else that implemented or was part of getting it all together. But yet, with that many people involved, I think it was 34 or so women that were involved in that. That may not be the right number, but there was more than 30 that were involved in that. And I'm like, does two people do all this? Makes you wonder.
There's other names out there, and I feel that there's definitely some concerns of mutually assured destruction. Like something's not being said because something's going to get destroyed. Someone's legacy, some industry, something's going to get destroyed. I think if the names, or if any of these names are getting exposed, because like we talked about earlier, there are probably tiers, right? You have people who are super powerful that might be on that list, and you have people who are probably bottom feeders are on that list. You can't likely just throw the bottom feeders to the fire. Maybe they might expose some names just in order so they can get some type of immunity.
Well, and to clarify, and I know you used the term bottom feeders, but I'm thinking with a man of his wealth and power, there probably weren't too many ordinary people.
Yeah, not the barista at Starbucks.
Yeah, I wouldn't think, or the waitress or the waiter. I'm sure the waitress was allowed to be there, but the waiter probably not so much. And I know I joke about that, but it's certainly not funny for the women that were involved in that. No. Absolutely not. But I wonder, I haven't read a lot about his origins and where he came up. I just know that, he kind of got involved in the stock market trading and was a financier. Wasn't sure where his money came from, but he certainly had an in with some people at his early beginnings there.
Yeah, his friends list was pretty extensive. If you look at some of the pictures and some of the people that he associated with, even in the early 2000s. This is again after his first, accusations, alleged sexual assault cases and stuff against him. So,
well, it's like some of the names like Stephen Hawking, Bill Clinton, Donald Trump. I even think I saw one somewhere where Tom Hanks was on one of the planes, that went down there. And again, just because somebody's name is on that list doesn't mean they were part of that whole under sex trafficking kind of thing that was going on there. Because, there's a certain amount, like if you don't know about somebody's proclivities, but yet they're a person of wealth and a person of power in a sense, you might want to talk to them. There might be someone in Hollywood that says, maybe he'll invest in a movie, or there's someone, maybe he'll give me a good stock tip. Maybe he'll help increase my wealth by me knowing him and getting to, hobnob with those other people. So it's not necessarily that. Now I've got a friend of mine in California who's in the movie industry, and she's like, this is not about, and she hates Trump, but she said, this is not about Trump. She said, if there's Democrats on that list and they were guilty, they all need to be prosecuted. So it's not like no one's taken a hammer out on Trump for this, and exclusively Trump. If somebody's involved, it should come out. People should, get prosecuted.
And no matter who they are, they should be prosecuted.
Yeah, no matter who they are, no matter what their political, sides that they're on, if they were doing something bad. And, how many times, and this is, what was it? Gosh, I can't remember his name all of a sudden, but he was so up in arms about all this and so against all this. And then next thing you know, he's like he's prosecuted for the same things that he was up against. Sort of like our recently deceased Jimmy Swaggart. How he was going after the guy, and he was like, "Oh, this guy's bad. He's evil. He's cheating on his wife. He's got hookers on." And then he's caught.
Exposed.
He's caught. So, and then there was the senator or congressman who was exposed in the restroom, for his trying to solicit somebody in the bathroom.
That wasn't Wiener, was it?
No, it wasn't Wiener. Wiener was the one he sent his
pictures as a Wiener.
Penis pictures. Yeah.
Wiener was sending pictures of Wieners. Yeah.
But then there was, and it's like, you almost wonder, methinks he doth protest too much, that whole idea there.
Right.
It's just a wild.
And to touch back on something you said earlier about, people going out and hanging with Epstein. And again, I'm not making light of anyone that had any relationship with him, but let's look at Bernie Madoff. How many people were friends with him and did business with him, but had no idea that guy was going to literally almost cripple the entire planet, with
financially.
All financially.
Yeah.
And there's people that hung out with him. A lot of movie stars invested money with him, and they hung out with him. Didn't make them,
bad
cohorts.
Yeah.
And his criminal activities. So people have to really, go into this thinking that way. Is just because someone's name or picture or something with them doesn't mean that they were cohorts in this and hit whatever his thing was.
And there's enough people out there to sit there and go, well, we know Trump's name was out there. We know Clinton's name was out there. We can say something and people will believe it.
Right.
Whether it's true or not.
This is true.
Whether it's true or not. And again, I'm not on any side on this. I'm just saying that that's the reality of what happens. If somebody's name is on a list, automatically you're lumped in with the bad people.
With the bad people. I agree 100%. And it should, I don't know whatever happened to being innocent until proven guilty, but it's.
Well, a lot has changed over the years.
Yes.
And it started with, I would say, the Clinton administration, where we overlooked the morality of what the president was doing because of the great or good job that people thought he was doing.
Right.
We overlooked the morality of somebody because, hey, I've got money in my bank. My stock picks went way up.
My portfolio looks
looks really good right now.
Yep.
So I don't care what they do in their private life, because it's a good president.
Yeah.
Well, I've always been taught that your integrity follows you through everything.
Agreed.
So if you are not in integrity in something, then that spews over into other things you're doing, right or wrong.
Right. If you can do this, especially in the Oval Office, it's just like if you can do this, what else are we capable of doing?
Yeah.
So.
And then again, they were two consenting adults. Yes, he was married. There's some question about Hillary and his, relationship over the years. People have come out and said, well, they were married for convenience. They weren't really, a couple like that. And again, at times, I just look at her. She seemed kind of cold, and he's a man, a virile man, and it's like, I don't know. It doesn't make it right, but I'm just saying. If a man's not getting what he needs at home, sometimes he looks out. In fact, I've been seeing tons of videos and there's women out there who are posting these videos that are talking about how, ladies, you need to take care of your man. So if you don't take care of your man, he
will stray.
He will stray.
Yeah.
And so, and I'm not saying that as a sexist thing because, women need certain things to feel protected and cared for, and men need certain things to feel protected and cared for. It's a different list.
And that might be the whole case with Ghislaine. Maybe that was her thing. That's what he wanted. And she just felt that she needed to help him fulfill his sexual fantasies in order to keep him around. Or, she was pretty wealthy herself too, wasn't she?
Yeah, but when it starts to be underaged, then I have no qualms about saying these people were just filthy nasty. No. And even an 18-year-old doesn't make the best decisions. Right. I was thinking about that the other day. I was thinking about how my father died when I was 23, before I turned 24. And there was so much I did not know as a young man that I would have liked to have learned from my father that now at 64, I go, wow, if I knew this, I could have taught my kids this. You know, if my dad was around, my dad could have taught me this
Right.
instead of having to wait. So it's like, it's that whole thing. And when you're young like that, whether or not you agree to do something at 18 years old, that doesn't mean you're making the best decision for you. It only makes it legal in the law's eyes.
Right.
Doesn't make it smart
Right.
in your own eyes as a young person.
What is the old saying? You can drive your car with your feet. Doesn't mean it's a good idea to do so. Right. So
right.
yeah.
Yeah. I've used my knees to steer my car a few times before.
Yeah.
That's a totally different story. So back in 2008, 36 girls abused. The allegations were 36 were underage girls were abused at his Palm Beach home under the guise of massages.
Yes.
All right. Epstein accepted a non-prosecution agreement, an NPA, brokered by then U.S. Attorney Alexander Acosta, pled guilty to 2 state charges, solicitation and prostitution, procuring a minor for prostitution. Sentenced to 13 months in jail, as I mentioned before, was allowed to leave 12 hours a day, 6 days a week. And he had controversial immunity. The agreement protected any potential co-conspirators, effectively sealing off a deeper investigation.
That is a shame.
And that was the agreement made by then U.S. Attorney Alexander Acosta.
Right.
So the deal was like, okay, you admit to this and we won't look any further.
And that's where things get really, really deep. Why?
Yeah.
Why? I
Why?
mean, to me, there's...
Why not look any further? I'm sorry. If you even have the hint that this may be going on, and he wouldn't need a controversial immunity agreement unless there was somebody else that could potentially be harmed by it.
Right. There's some, you know, what do they say? There's some elites. There's somebody more powerful than president. We watch those old movies where there's a president makers, right? It's the guy who's behind the president, the guy that pushes them and gets them into the, you know, to mingle with the correct people and gets them the votes and gets them the chairs and gets them what they need in order to become a president. And then now you owe me, you know. It's those people that I think that they're protecting. Someone's got to be protecting someone. There's no reason not to give justice to those women and those girls, those teenagers, those whatever they were all victims. Those victims, they deserve the justice that they deserve justice.
And they're grown women now. I mean, they're in their 30s and 40s and et cetera.
Yeah.
You know, the idea that they have to live with this forever, or the idea that, well, okay, go back to Prince Andrew.
Right.
You know, Prince Andrew was in all this, and he lost his status, you know, with the royal family because of this. There were not, and I don't know why, but to my knowledge, there were no other women who spoke out specifically about important figures. You know, there was no woman that I know of that mentioned Trump's name or mentioned Clinton's name. It was just that they were at one point or another there.
Right.
So, yet Prince Andrew, he was like, they outed him really quick.
He was like, he got thrown under the rug really fast.
You think because he wasn't from America?
In
other words, he didn't have protection here in the United States, so they goes, well, we'll throw his name out there.
But it wouldn't be like, you know, they couldn't send somebody over here to silence somebody either, you know.
No, I'm not saying they wouldn't silence anybody, but the whole idea is like, well, the American public doesn't really care about Prince Andrew.
Yeah.
They don't really care about the royals. They want to know who in the United States is involved.
Right.
So that's why he was like an easy one to give up a name, because then the focus went on him and was taken off of any other. Because it was in the news media for quite a while.
It was. And I don't remember it being that big of a buzz. I mean, I know his name got bounced around and then it was a lot of coverage as to the aftermath of him being exposed. But it really wasn't about like a criminal pursuit. Like it didn't really seem like it was, any of the conversations were about like how we're gonna, you know, what justice we're gonna give this victim and what was gonna go on. It was like, oh, well, Prince Andrew today, well, you know, the Parliament is doing this with him today, and they're saying this, and people are, you know, his approval rating is dropping, and things of that type. And it was what I saw.
Yeah.
I didn't see anything about, let's see if we can get him into the courts. Can we get him extradited here to face, criminal charges? None of that. I don't remember seeing, and it may have happened. I mean, I just didn't see it.
Yeah.
But I don't remember seeing any of it.
Well, I mean, I'm not trying to get off topic here because I don't really want to go into this, but it's sort of like, you watch P. Diddy's trial and all this stuff, and you hear all these accusations and all these things and all these people accusing, and all these names come up, the Beyonce, Jay-Z, Justin Bieber, all these names come up, and then all of a sudden you don't hear anything.
No.
And it's kind of the same thing with Jeffrey Epstein. You hear all these names comes up, and then you heard nothing. It's like, okay, so flight logs. There were flight logs with names of people who flew on Epstein's private jet. Not proof of wrongdoing.
No. Nope.
Not proof of wrongdoing. Just because you're on somebody's jet, doesn't mean that you were guilty or, guilty by association there.
I agree 100%.
List of contacts found at his home. Again, not proof of involvement.
Nope.
Address books, social black books. The Maxwell trial evidence. Some names emerged, but few criminal implications. So people were named, but they weren't necessarily in association with the sex trafficking or the sexual aspect of that.
And the videos, I think Kash Patel went on record the last couple of days talking about he's watched all the videos, and I think it was Joe Rogan that asked him. He's like, what's on these videos? And Kash's response was, it's not what you think it is, or it's not what you want it to be, or something of that nature. So again, it's like you said, there's something out there. There's things out there. I feel like it's part of the X-Files. There's things out there that they're protecting or hiding. And like you said, I don't think it's necessarily something with Trump or Clinton or Republicans or Democrats or, the barista, the waitress, or, I think it's got to be something bigger.
But from 2008 to 2019, 11-year period, right? Mm-hmm. During that 11-year period, there were people that were public figures that were, I'll use the word involved or friends of or acquaintances with Jeffrey Epstein post his first conviction.
Right.
Again, there wasn't a big deal in the media, but some of these people had to know the potential risk they were taking being involved with him.
Right. Well, I mean, didn't the article say this? It wasn't widely known. Well, no, that was just 2008.
2008 was not widely known.
But 2019
right.
or 2018.
Yeah, 2018
is when it first. Yeah, that was known. But I don't know. I mean, so here's a question: do you think that all of the regeneration of the Epstein case? Do you think this started from Elon Musk post? It seemed like it was kind of almost dead up until that point.
Well, I think that had something to do with it, but I think that there was an entity out there, an anti-Trump entity, that from the moment that it looked like he was going to win, the wheels were turning. Mm-hmm. And again, not saying pro-Trump or anti-Trump, just saying that there are groups out there who would do anything to see Trump out of office.
Out of office. And that's my only, as far as Trump goes in the Epstein files, that's why I always thought, and again, it's not pro-Trump or anti-Trump, it's just logic to me in my head. If everything that was done to stop him from running right in the second term, and Biden's DOJ had access to the Epstein information that whole entire time, 4 years, I firmly believe that if Trump's name was on there, it would have been thrown to the lions. Mm-hmm. I think they would have. I mean, why not? Right.
Well, unless, like the whole thing is now, Republicans and Democrats both are saying we want to see the files.
Right.
So if you don't see the files, you don't know what's in the files.
Right. And you can't throw his name out of there without exposing, whatever else is on there. Right.
I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of people that are going, no, I don't want that file to get out.
Yeah.
I don't want to see that file. I don't want, even those that may be innocent of wrongdoing are going like, I really don't want my name associated with that guy at this point. Doesn't mean you're guilty of wrongdoing. It's just like, boy, I made a dumb decision hanging out with him.
I would like to see the victims get justice. I would like to see them get justice. I think, someone that as powerful as he is and the people that he may have, committed these acts with, I don't want to feel that they're above the law. So I do feel like, when I go to sleep at night, there's people out there who got away with some heinous crimes.
And it doesn't matter whether they're Democrat or Republican. It has no bearing on that whatsoever. If they're guilty, they're guilty.
If it's Biden or Trump, and if I'm a Republican or Democrat, I don't care who my president is at that time. If they're on that list, I want to see them swing like anybody else would, because in my mind, there is no room for pedophiles. I mean, not of that nature. It's just I as a father. And I would think of how I would be if somebody did something like that to my kids. It would be scorched earth, and I think that these women, they deserve justice. They deserve to have their voices heard, and it's just a shame that we're silencing them in the interest of protecting someone or some people or some group, because they're powerful people.
Sex trafficking, does not just include minors.
No.
I mean, there are adults that are sex trafficked. It does not just include women. There are boys and young men that get sex trafficked.
Yep.
That really, I don't know how much of that played into the Epstein thing. Certainly, there were a lot of underaged. Like I said, 36 women came forward. Above that, I don't know if there were any. I can't
I
intelligently
thought it was
say
one
if
male. I thought there was one male. I could be wrong. I could have swore I read somewhere it was one male that was doing massages as well. But I'd have to look that up.
Maybe he was just a regular masseuse.
He could have been. Yeah.
But then again, I don't know that they were necessarily all underage.
No, they weren't all on that. That I do know for sure. I don't remember what the number, like how many were and how many weren't. But I mean, in my mind, just one is enough.
Yeah.
Just
doesn't
one.
have to be more than
doesn't
one.
have to be more than one.
So what do you think, or what would you like to see happen next?
I would like to see criminal charges brought out. I think that.
But before that, we have to see the file.
We have to see the files. I don't know if. Well, see, it's a double-edged sword because the fear of vigilante justice, right? Like, do you really want to start just throwing names out before you do your prosecutions? I think maybe if there is a list, if they have information, if they have what's the word I'm looking for here? When you have the
collusion.
No, the people that forensic
science.
Yeah, you have enough forensics science and forensic information that can pull somebody into this, 100% certainty. Go after them. I mean, that's it. You don't have to make it. It doesn't have to be a spectacle. We don't have to make a big thing, about it in the news. I mean, eventually it's going to come out, but I think everybody pushing for the files, want to see the files, want to see this. No, do your job. Go through what you have. Find the criminals and prosecute them. And we should be knowing about who they are as they're being pulled into court or as they're being pulled into the jail, handcuffed. I want to see them handcuffed, and facing trial. And I do understand it takes a lot of time to put together a case because no prosecutor wants to lose a case. So they're not going to just haphazardly go out after somebody. Like I said, the forensics has to be there. But
and I believe, and again, I'm only going this based on something that happened here in Florence, that there's a clock on this. If once you get information and accuse somebody, you've got to act fairly quickly. Like we had a couple raids that went on here in Florence where they went in and raided 2 different houses.
Yep.
One, it was like 2 weeks before that person was arrested and taken into custody. The other raid that they did, as of today, nobody had been arrested yet. Same 2-week period.
Right.
Or same period. And what I was told by the police chief is that, we could not make an arrest until we verified the information. So they went, they raided the house, they took computers, they took, laptops, computers, cell phones, and all that stuff, and had to go through it.
Right.
Because he said if they would arrest the guy at the same time, their time clock starting, and they have to have all that information, or they have to let them go.
Right. It's like a 48-hour window or something like that. They can, and try to find other reasons to hold them or whatever. But if they have not pulled anything conclusive with all the information they got from the seizure, they have to let them go.
Yeah. Right. But at the same time, you think about all the years that have passed, even since 2019, you're talking 6 years or more, that this kind of information is getting diluted or getting, harder to find those that may be involved in it, or harder to prove those that were involved in it. Now, you talked about forensic evidence. That could mean, could mean anything from files to DNA. To find that.
Videos, yeah.
And who knows, how hard that is. And you'd think that Epstein did have cameras down there on the island.
Right. But
I'm sure I don't know. I'm not sure that there weren't cameras in the rooms. Who knows?
As sick as he is, I'm pretty sure they said there were videos of things, so I don't know exactly what the videos show, but it wouldn't surprise me if he was videotaping those type of, his acts.
I recently saw a video. In fact, it was like 2 days ago. I saw a video where Jeffrey Epstein was in New York. He had this big old white coat on, and then this young girl was following beside him, freezing with her arms like this, kind of going to the car with him. He gets in the car. She goes around to the other side of the car. They roll the window down. Something is said. You don't hear any of the audio. And then she runs back to the New York apartment. And as they open the door, Ghislaine Maxwell's there. And behind her is Prince Andrew.
Oh.
And then the young girl walks back inside. And so I don't know. I've never seen that video before. I don't know where it came from. And then again, these days,
AI being what it is.
I can see, Yetis, doing their thing on
yes.
So anyway.
Yeah, no, it's and like you said when we were talking about forensics too, I think maybe that is one of the reasons why they don't want to, if there is a list, they don't want to start throwing names out there because, like you said, there might be people that's innocent, and the general public, they're all going to be guilty.
Yeah.
So, before you ruin someone's career, someone's life, who just went out there for a business meeting, had no idea what was going on there at the time, maybe completely blind to Epstein's, sexual deviations and stuff, but, and then their name shows up on the list. And here we are, because it's kind of hard to recover too. Once you get canceled, it's really hard for some of these people to recover.
I saw a podcast the other day, and I think it was that Sean guy who was a former Navy SEAL, and I'm not 100% sure on that. But they were talking about the sex trafficking was just one part of what Epstein was into.
Mm-hmm.
He was talking about how he wanted to get into physics and get into the physics of things like that. That was totally scientific. And that's maybe why Stephen Hawking was there, on this stuff, and that there were some underlying things going on. And I don't know what they came up with. The reason for that was, but it made me wonder, maybe there were other things involved in that than just that.
Yeah.
So.
And also too, I was the guy who's kind of to take a step back. The guy who's interviewing Ghislaine, that was Trump's former lawyer.
Yeah.
Right. So he's doing the interview, but her lawyers were present as well. From what I understand, her defense lawyers were present, and they're obviously not cheap lawyers. I'm sure of it. But the weird thing, and I've heard, I don't know if you've heard the same thing, that they've never interviewed her really. I mean, other than that one declaration that she did when they first started talking to her, and she went to court. But as far as them asking her about who was involved and things like what the interview this last couple of days were, none of that was asked when she originally got convicted.
Now, her lawyers were asking her.
Right.
But the opposing...
The prosecution
wasn't
asking. Yeah, like they did not want to know who it was. They wanted to know what she was involved in and when she knew what was happening. And
well, again, she was the one on trial. So that kind of makes sense in a way, because anything else is hearsay or cover your ass kind of stuff. It's like, well, I'm going to throw these names out so that
yeah,
the it's the
deflecting.
focus is on somebody
Right,
else.
right, deflected. Yeah. Well, you would figure. I mean, they still would have probably. I would have thought they would have asked, but you're right. Yeah, in most cases, if you're the one that's on trial, they don't really want, because then your jury gets kind of, you know, sidetracked.
Tainted.
Yeah, they're tainted. And
Well, and two, you also have the times when the judge has the two lawyers in the office and says, "This is the protocol. This is what you're allowed to ask by law. You know, not just my whim, but this is what you're allowed to ask by law. You know, it's about her, so keep it about her. You know, if you want to prosecute somebody else, then go prosecute somebody else.
Right.
This is about her trial,
Yeah.
and what she's guilty of."
No, that definitely makes a lot. Yeah, no, that definitely makes a lot of sense. And I didn't even think about it that way. You're right, because you cannot prosecute multiple people in a case where the only person that's sitting at the witness stand, only person that's at the pew or sitting in the defense is just that one person, right? You're not going after
Right.
racketeering or something like that, where you have multiple people standing trial for.
And that, if you're going to do that, that doesn't happen in court. That happens in the investigation. That's where the FBI goes out and investigates this before it gets into the court.
Right.
They should know who they're going after before Ghislaine gets on the stand or before Ghislaine is deposed.
But do you think the DOJ would have asked her, or why they wouldn't have asked her? I mean, because it was a pretty big trial, even when she was going. So
Well, 2018. I mean, you know, it's that's before. That was during the Trump first administration. Trump.
Yeah. Right. Yep.
You know, so I don't know. I don't know what the priorities might have been different then. There was a lot going on in the government at that point in time that was refocusing what people were getting to see or hear or listen to. So I don't know.
Yeah, I find that kind of strange. I have not researched this to find out 100% certain that did not happen. But listening again, because I watch, if I'm watching a story, I'll watch the two most extreme national news media outlets. I'll watch and see what Fox has to say, or I'll watch and see what CSNBC.
So you can land somewhere in the middle.
So I can try to figure out how, what aren't they saying and what are they saying that's consistent. I do this with everything. If I'm working on something, right, and I want to work on something in the car, I don't just watch one video. I'll watch several videos. I'll watch dozens of videos and see what's consistent, because that's the part that you really want to go with. And most people do things differently. And I see that the news gets reported differently. So I have not seen anything that supports the idea that she was questioned on who else was involved from the DOJ, and definitely not during court.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I don't know what happens next. I mean, either they release the files or they don't. And I don't know that, again, it's like they released JFK files. We still don't really know what happened.
Right. Right. Is it any more clear, right?
It's not any more
it's just
clear
going to be
than
clear
it
as
was.
mud.
And there's still, just the other day, I saw a podcast that with the Sean guy. I can't remember his last name now. He's getting pretty popular, though, with the stuff. But they're just going on about, well, there had to be more than one bullet. Incidents happened from the front side, not the back side, which meant it wasn't, the Harvey Oswald. Yeah. So it's like, the same thing with Epstein here. You're going to hear a lot of different things. The files may say a lot of different things. I don't know that it's going to make it any clearer.
I don't think it will be. Again, there's people who are going to be on these files, and if there is a list, there's people going to be on the list, and they can be completely innocent. And so what are you going to do? Does everybody suffer just because they knew his name, or everybody suffers because they were in business with him? And how do you separate the ones who were there doing things to the ones who were there actually just trying to conduct business? I mean, the guy made money hand over fist. So who wouldn't want to rub elbows with them to try to make money? I mean, it's money, right? So, but then you got the people who are making money and realize, oh wait, you're doing this on the side, you know, and they probably went down that dark path and with him. And I would just like to see justice done.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. These women that were involved in this, you know, unwillingly, or whether they were groomed into it, or whether they were taken off the streets and thought, well, you know, at least I'll have a roof over my head, you know. But at that age, they're not, you know, able to make those decisions by themselves. But
I kind of wonder, as adults, though, and forgive my ignorance in this, but I'm figuring out, as an adults, why haven't any of them just come out and say, hey, you know what? Yeah, it was this guy, or it was that guy, you know, or maybe they don't get to know their names. Maybe they don't know who they are. I mean, I don't know. It's hard for me to imagine.
Well, there's certain people I think I'd know their names.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, if you're in the room with somebody, you know, you're going to know. Then again, you know, are they worried about their lives? Are they worried about, if they say it was so and so?
Right.
Are they worried about death at that point?
I mean, all possibilities.
Because if they die before they get into the courtroom,
yeah,
you know, it's over. You know, that person will not be prosecuted for that.
No, they'll get away, especially if it's one person per crime. You know, if it's one person that person's been with, and that witness is gone, that's it. That's all you got. You know, you can have a cousin that come up and say, "Oh, well, they told me this or they told me that." It's going to just get thrown out of court. But I always wonder, just like, why aren't we hearing? You know, there's got to be someone out there that's willing to say, you know what, this is that guy right there on television. This guy, you know, it was Forrest Gump that did, you know, anything. Like, someone would have to know at least some of these people who were involved.
And it could still come out that way. It could just be to where they get to the point where they're brave enough, or where they've had enough of people not telling the truth. You know,
yeah,
could possibly happen.
But yeah, no, we would like to see justice done. We would like to see. I really honestly don't care.
No matter who the guilty parties are.
No matter who they are. No matter who they are. If it's my favorite actor, if it's a relative, I swear, seriously. I mean, I don't see a place on the planet for anybody who. No, none of my relatives are rich.
I'm kidding.
They wouldn't even make the barista. No.
Yeah. Mine too.
But no, I don't have any room in my heart for people that would do these type of things, sex trafficking, you know, abusing minor children, or, you know, just
abusing anybody for that matter.
Yeah.
I mean, but definitely, you know, the whole thing that this is all about. This is all about those underage girls and abusing them, using them for their own sick, twisted mind. You know. I mean, you can be sick and twisted as long as it's two consenting adults.
Right.
You know, I mean,
agreed.
Two consenting adults. You know,
you know, and I, me personally, like, I don't need to see the list. Am I curious? Oh, hell yeah. Would I love to peek at the list? I would probably love to. But more than anything that tops all that is just justice.
But here's the thing about that, and this is the last thing I'll say about it. When the information is available to somebody, and yet they defer to somebody else to talk about it, you know, I would not want to take somebody else's word for it if I'm going to speak out on it myself. In other words, I'd want to see, before I said so-and-so and so-and-so, I wouldn't want it to be because Joe Rogan said it.
Right.
You know, I'd want it to be because Joe Rogan said it, and then I looked at it myself. Like you were talking about some friends of yours, and I really don't want to get into the whole aspect of exactly what, but people saying, oh, so-and-so said this. Right. And you said, no, I read that. I saw that video. That's not what was said. Right. You know, so it's like people hear somebody else say something, and then that becomes their truth.
That becomes the truth. Yeah. And I agree 100%. You don't want to share any information if you can't validate it. It just doesn't make any sense to you know, throw somebody on a bus and, oh, well, this person said that. Like I saw somewhere today where they were saying that the Trump was hiding in Scotland from the Epstein. I'm like, well, wait a minute, isn't he out there for a EU tariff meeting or something like that? Or it's like, it was a business thing. So why are we saying he's hiding? You know, but I watched how, like, and I go and I look at the comments, and he's hiding. And it's like, maybe he is.
If he's hiding, you wouldn't know where he was.
You wouldn't know where he was, right?
You know,
and he went there for a
you're
meeting.
the president. You can't really hide.
Right. Yeah, you can't. There's nowhere you can really hide.
Yeah.
But I just think it's funny that like because that podcaster said that, and you look at the comments that were following, and like everybody was on that same bandwagon.
Right.
He's hiding. I was like, he's in plain sight. He's got the news outlets following him literally. They're on Air Force One. They went to Scotland with him. They went to his golf course there with him, and they went to the meeting with him. It's like, who is he hiding from?
But then again, that's kind of the way podcasts go. Like if you're a fan of Joe Rogan, you're gonna repeat what he says.
What he said.
Yep. You know, if you're a fan of the Pivot guys, you're gonna repeat what they say. I hope that if we have fans of our thing and we say something that doesn't suit them, even though they're our fans, I hope they'll say, whoa, wait a minute.
Question us.
That happened with this Sean guy I was talking about, who was a Navy SEAL. He had put out some information out there that he had spouted was truth. And then he found out it wasn't. And he went and did a specific 10-minute podcast on apologizing and saying he was wrong and he was incorrect for doing it that way. And that just, whether or not I agree with him, that made me respect him beyond belief, because he's not afraid to say, I screwed up. It was against a certain side of a political party, and I said it, and I found out it wasn't true, and now I'm telling you that I know it wasn't true.
Right.
So,
and which everybody should do.
Yeah.
I mean, you should do. If you're saying something wrong, if you're reaching out to people publicly and you have influence over those people, if they're watching us, they're watching Joe Rogan, they're watching these other guys pivot, you know, a lot of people they're influenced by them. Do you want to influence somebody with wrong information or bad information? You have a moral obligation to tell the truth, or, you know, consider yourself smut. Like this is what you're doing. You're a National Enquirer. And you should be seen as such, and you should, you know, and then you can treat your audience as such. If they want to stay and listen to it, that's one thing. But if you are a proponent of truth and you want to share insightful and helpful information, be honest.
Yeah. And I'd rather have that discourse than for it to be all one-sided.
Right.
I don't want someone just to listen because they agree with everything we say.
Right.
I don't want that.
Yeah, we don't puppets. No puppets.
No, don't want that at all. And, you know, if you do agree with everything we say, well, that's fine too. But, you know, sometimes we turn around and go, well, maybe we shouldn't have said that. But, well, Larry, I don't know about you, but I think we beat this to death.
I think so.
Not literally.
Not yet.
But figuratively. But it will be interesting to see what happens next.
If anything.
Yeah.
But,
I mean, you know, it's about Jeffrey Epstein, but we everybody knows there's more than that. It's more than about one person. Right. You know, it's more than about him. And again, as we talked about, it's about accountability. It's about integrity. It's about truth. It's about, you know, getting the people that were truly involved. If there were other people involved, they need to be prosecuted, not persecuted, prosecuted. And they need to find their way to a prison cell.
And we don't want any martyrs, right?
No.
We want people who actually committed the crimes,
and at the same time, we don't want guys like this young man who shot the health CEO, you know, because he was unhappy with the price of insurance. And all that.
Luigi.
Yeah. Anyway, thanks for listening. Appreciate you being there, and tell your friends if you love us. If you don't love us, don't tell your friends. Tell them you love us anyway.
And don't forget to like, comment. We do read our comments. And if you have something interesting, you know, we may bring it up on the next podcast and we'll talk about it. So don't hold back.
Yeah. And if you have a name for us, go ahead and include it in your comments down there. And even if we don't pick your name, there may be an opportunity for you to win the $500 we were talking about. So keep that in mind when you're listening. Thanks.
And subscribe.
Hey, thanks so much for watching. If you made it this far, we appreciate you. Like and subscribe. You can get us on their YouTube channel there. You can also find us on Spotify, Amazon, and Apple Podcasts. So make sure you do that. And there's still a little bit of time for you to qualify for that $500 cash we're giving away. So don't delay. You got to hurry.